going, y'all? Welcome back to another session. Hope y'all are doing marvelous. What we're going to go over here in this video is we're going to go over kCalories and AMDRs, like I spoke about before. These are acceptable macronutrient distribution ranges. So what is a kCal? Well, kCal is kCalories for short, or kilocalories. That's what they stand for. So kCalorie is simply an energy measurement, okay? It's a way for you to measure how much energy from the macronutrients that you're getting with each meal and out of your overall daily calories, right, for the entire day. So these relate to proteins, carbs, and fats, right? Each macronutrient gives you a specific amount of energy as you intake and consume food. So what kCal does is, it measures out how much carbs, proteins, and fats that you get from said foods, and they are expressed in 1,000 calorie metric units. So what that means is, as I have here in parentheses, 1 kCal is equal to about 1,000 calories, right? kCal and calories, right, they tend to be used interchangeably. So they do mean the same thing, all right? Then we go to what is AMDR. Well, that's your acceptable macronutrient distribution ranges. And if we look over here, right, I have an arrow pointing out to this sort of a little bit of a key, if you will, because what this is here, as we go through this bottom half, this is something that you're going to need to remember in order to, gauge, how you're doing for each meal, as well as how you're doing for the entire rest of the day, or how you doing each meal will give you sort of a preview as to the whole entire day. So these are our kCalorie values, and over here these are our AMDR values. So starting with kCalorie, okay, carbs, fats, and proteins, all three macronutrients give you a specific amount of kCal per gram. So for each gram of each macronutrient that you consume, is going to give you these amounts right here. For carbohydrates, it's 4 kCalories per gram. So that means every gram of carbohydrates you take, you're getting about 4 kCalories, right? That's how much energy you're getting from the carbohydrates. Proteins, same thing, 4 kCalories, just like the carbs. Proteins give you 4 kCalories per each gram consumed. And fats, that's the only one that's different. Fats give you about 9 kCalories per gram, okay? Now, those are our kCalorie values. Now we're going to go over to the AMDR values. So, carbs, fats, and proteins, these are the recommendations for how much of a percentage, right? What percentage of carbs, fats, and proteins should make up your daily calories, right? So, carbohydrates, anywhere from 45 to 65%. Proteins, anywhere from 10 to 35%. And then fats, anywhere from 20 to 35%. With that, so as you can see here, for each macronutrient, there's a lower and an upper limit to what you can intake. Okay. Now, quite obviously, if you go past your upper limit, then you may have a problem. Maybe not. It does depend on goals. There's different things that factor in, right? So maybe your goal is to put on more muscle mass. So obviously, if that's your goal, your protein intake, it may exceed 35% for the day, because as most people know, for you to put on muscle, you do have to eat a little bit more protein. Oftentimes, a lot of people try to consume the same amount of grams as their body weight. It just depends on goals. Whereas if you're trying to lose weight, okay, you may intake a little bit more and intake a little less, right? Like, so fats, for example, maybe you are not taking in as much fats, but you're taking in, the within the limit, or maybe even a little more than the limit of proteins, as well as carbs, because that's where your energy is going to come from. And then the proteins will sit there and maintain your muscle, or help build or tone whatever it is that your goals are. So there's different things that do come into play, but this is a general recommendation here for how much energy from each macronutrient you should be getting, how much of your daily calories each macronutrient should consist of. I have written down some examples here, right? I got 2 examples, and then on this side I have a full day's calories. So we're going to go through each one, right? For example 1, I have a slice of bread and a tablespoon of peanut butter. So as you can see here, I've written CP and F, short for carbs, proteins, and fats, right? Now, a slice of bread and 1 tablespoon of peanut butter is said to give you, these are the amounts that are given to you, how much carbs, proteins, and fats you get out of each example. Those I've already written this down to where those are given to you. So now you just have to take and do the math, which I'm going to help you guys with, so don't worry. So for the slice of bread and a tablespoon of peanut butter example, we'll give you 16 grams of carbs, 7 grams of proteins, and about 9 grams of fat. So what our goal is to find out what the kCalories is that we're going to be getting from each macronutrient out of this meal. So this is where this key up here is going to come into play, right? So we're going to start with the kCalories. We'll go into AMDRs in a little while, but we're going to start with kCalories first. So we've already determined, and I wrote that down for you as well in both examples, but in this one I wrote that down for you because carbs times 4, right? So you'll take each, however much carbs, proteins, and fats exist in said meal or in said item, you're going to take that amount and then you're going to multiply it by the kCal values that come from each macronutrient. So for the carbs, we know, based on what we've written up here, we already know that carbohydrates gives us 4 kCalories per gram of carb consumed. So when you have 16 grams of carbs, you just simply multiply that by 4, that's going to give us 64, right? So a slice of bread and a tablespoon of peanut butter will give us 64 kCal from carbs. Now proteins, right? We have 7 grams of protein. Up here, protein gives us 4 kCals per each gram consumed. So with 7 grams, times that by 4, we get 28. And then last but not least, fats, 9 grams come out of this particular meal. So we're going to take and times that by the 9 kCal per gram that we get, and that's going to give us 81. Okay, so that's step 1. All right, now here comes step 2. Step 2 is you're going to take all these values here. Once you figured out the total amount of kCalories come from each macronutrient, you're going to go ahead and take all these values and you're going to add them together. So you're looking at about 173, right? So it should be 173 kCal total. So that's step 2. All right. Now, here's your next step, right? And this is step 3, right? It's going to be your last step, okay? Here's what you have found out so far. This meal gives you 173 kCalories. What you are to do now, as you can see here, I have slashes written, but these slashes really are division signs. You're going to take each kCal, right, for each macronutrient individually and divide it by the total number. So 173 will go in each line right here, and I'm going to go ahead and put an equal sign because I'm going to talk about what that value is going to equal, okay? So what you'll do is you will take 64, right? This is for carbs. The proteins, that's 28, and then the fats is 81. So what you're going to do is you will then divide these values, and what that's going to give you is that's going to give you your AMDR values, okay? That's for each macronutrient. Each macronutrient will give you your AMDRs, and then you can, once you've gotten the answers, you can look back up here and you can tell whether or not you're doing okay or whether you're not doing so hot, or what the case may be. We'll go into it. But for right now, and don't mind me, I got my calculator out because I'm okay with mental math, but when it comes to division, especially with bigger numbers, it is what it is. So 64 divided by 173, that's going to give us 0.3699, rounded up, it's going to be 37%. Okay, because we're going to write this out in percentage terms. Now, the next is 28 divided by 173, and we are looking at 16%. Then last but not least, we have 81 divided by 173, and that's going to give us 47%. So now that we have the values for each one, why don't y'all go ahead and take a look and maybe compare that with the AMDR that's up here and tell me what you see might be wrong. Because if you looked at this and you figured that the fats was a little more than the upper limit, then you got that right. Okay, see, here's the thing. Carbs, 37%. Now with carbs, you're supposed to be anywhere between 45 to 65%, right? Now, that's lower than the lower limit. Now you're at 37 with just this meal. That's not so much a problem, okay? Because let's just say maybe this is your first meal of the day, or this is just simply one meal. Maybe you still throughout the day have other meals that you want to eat, where you can increase that percentage to get you between 45 to 65. So this isn't that much of a problem, okay? Proteins, 16%. You know, protein should be with anywhere between 10 to 35% for AMDR, for your acceptable range. And 16% does get you there. Again, this is just one meal, so maybe as you eat your other meals, you'll increase this percentage. The fats, though, a little bit of a problem. Fats is 47%. Now, if you look up at the legend, fat should be anywhere between 20 to 35%. 47 is higher than the highest limit. It's higher than the upper limit. So what that means is, okay, especially with this being one meal, what that's going to mean is you're most likely going to want to, as you go throughout the day, eating the rest of your meals, you build up, your calories for the entire day, that you choose from less fattening foods because you're already past the upper limit. So you're going to want to choose from, less fattening foods so that you don't increase this percentage, especially if you're trying to, say, lose weight, right? Like I said, goal depending, there's different factors that go into this, but generally speaking, this is higher than the highest limit for fats. Now, here's our other example, okay? This is example 2. Maybe this is your second meal, a bean burrito with cheese. Now, it's already determined that with the bean burrito with cheese, you get 55 grams of carbs, 15 grams of protein, and 12 grams of fats. So, as written, all right, we have 4, 4, and 9, based on the legend up here for kCalories. So for carbs, you take 55 grams times that by 4 kCals per gram. This is 220 kCalories for carbs. Now proteins, right, 15 grams times 4 kcal per gram, 15 times 4 is 60. Now, last but not least, fats, 12 grams times that by 9 kcal per gram of fat, and 12 times 9, you end up getting 108. So remember, step 1. Your step 1 is to find all the kcalorie values based on the amount of grams that you get from carbs, fats, and proteins from this meal. So that's your step 1. Find out what all your kcalorie values is. And of course, once you get your kcalorie values, you'll take and add all these together. Alright, so this number should be 388. Okay? So you're looking at 388 kcal. And our step 3 is to find out our AMDRs from a bean burrito with cheese. We find out how we're doing on the AMDR scale. Carbs, we have 220, right? Divided by 388. Then we have protein, 60, right? That was our total. Divided by 388. And our fats was 108. So again, step 3. You take all the individual values of kcal, alright? And then divide it by the total number. It's going to give you a percentage, and then you would take that percentage and find out whether you're within the limit, or if you're lower than the limit, or if you exceed the upper limit. 220 divided by 388, and that's going to round us up to about 57%. Alright, so carbs here, 57%. That's what the AMDR value is for a bean burrito with cheese, based on these values here that were given to us. Now 60 divided by 388, that's going to give us about 15%. Okay, now for fats, last but not least, take 108 divided by 388, and we are looking at about 28%. Okay, now that we've gotten that taken care of, what does that tell us? Well, that tells us that with carbohydrates being 57%, if you look up here, carbs anywhere between 45 to 65%, 57% is within that range. So you're good on carbs for this meal. Alright, now you look at the proteins, we're at 15%. Protein should be anywhere between 10 to 35%, right? That's how much energy should come from your total calories, or calories from said meals leading into your total calories. So 15% so far, we're doing good. Now there's fats, 28%. That's how much comes from a bean burrito with cheese. 28% puts us within the limit. That puts us within 20 to 35%, within the upper and lower. So we're pretty much good with this meal right here. So we have now, I'm going to show you guys how to calculate your AMDR values with using your full day's calorie numbers. Now, the example I have here is 1800 calories. Now, the way health organizations do things when it comes to nutrition and the math behind, AMDRs and kCalories and things like that, they do things based off of a 2,000 calorie diet, because that's, for a healthy individual, about 2,000 calories is how much a healthy individual should consume. So now, what we're going to do here is a little bit of an inverse, if you will, okay? So with the full day's calories, I have here 1800, okay? So let's say a person consumes 1800 calories per day, all right? Now, here's what I mean when I say finding the inverse. Before, in the other two examples, we were trying to find out kCalorie values. Now we're going to go ahead and take our kCalorie values and turn them into grams. Okay, so what this essentially is going to do when you're done with this is you're going to figure out for carbs, proteins, and fats how much grams should be a part of your 1800 calories, right? Or however many calories you intake. But that's basically what this is, right? This is going to show you how much carbs, how much fats, how much proteins should make up your daily calories. So we're going to start here with the carbs, right? Here's what I've also done in this block. I went ahead and rewritten the kCalorie values as well as the AMDR values for each macronutrient. Okay, so for carbs we're looking at 4 kCal per gram, right? As written up here, 45 to 65%. That's the AMDR range. All right. So first thing we'll do is we'll take 1800 and we have to multiply that by 0.45, right? Because you're multiplying that by 45%. So it's going to be 0.45. Now, so I'm doing this on my iPad now because the camera I was using, it decided to die. So now I kind of gotta switch gears a little bit. But 1800, okay, and times that by 0.45, we end up with a value of 810. So I'm going to write that up here in this first block. And before I go any further, what I've done here is I've already written down how much you're going to multiply each kCalorie value by, as well as each AMDR. So for carbs, right, 1800, you'll notice I have 45, 65, right, 0.45, 0.65. That's representative of the 45 to 65% AMDR range you see up here. If you look down at carbs, same thing, right? 0.10, 0.35, representative of the 10 to 35%. And last but not least, the fats, 0.20, 0.35, representative of the 20 to 35% AMDR range that each individual should be in. Now, with the division, okay, what I have written here is the kCal values. The reason why I wrote these in these lower blocks is because you're going to be using those values in your division once you find out these values, once you find out the kCal, okay? Because this 810 that we just found, that's the kCal value, all right? What this is going to turn kCal into grams. So the second value here, we have 1800 times 0.65. That's going to give us 1170. All right, 1170 goes right here. Now that we have the kCalorie values, we can go ahead and take both these values and multiply them by 4, since 4 kCal is how much energy you're getting per gram from carbs. So we'll start with 810, divide that by 4, you get 202.5 grams. We're going to go ahead and round up and say 203. So in grams, this is 203, right? Now, we're going to do the same with the second value. So we're going to take 1170 divided by 4. And we get 292.5, which is going to round us up to 293. Now that we have those values, before I move into the proteins and fats, we've turned kCals into grams. What this basically means is, for a person who's on an 1800 calorie diet, roughly approximately about 203 grams to 293 grams, that's how many grams of carbs that one should consume on an 1800 calorie diet. So hopefully you see how that works now. You're taking your full day's calories and then you're simply multiplying the AMDR range for each macronutrient and then dividing them by the kCal that you're supposed to be getting from said macronutrient. That's how you turn kCalories into grams. Okay, because before we were just using kCalorie values to find out whether or not you're in the right AMDR range. So now this is sort of an inverse. So we're going to move on to proteins now. Okay, and before I move on to proteins, I should say 203 to 293. Okay, that's representative of your 45 to 65% if you're on an 1800 calorie diet. So if you're on a different type, let's say you're like on a 1500 calorie diet, right? You eat 1500 calories per day because maybe you're not getting 2000 in or even 1800 in because you're trying to lose weight. Maybe you're consuming less calories, because if your goal is to lose weight, then it's no secret. You have to be on a calorie deficit, okay? You have to consume less calories than you expend. Depending on what your calories is for the day, right? Depending on whatever your total calories are, you know, the grams of how much protein, carbs and fats, how much macronutrients, the grams are going to change a little bit. And so will the kCal values, of course. After this video, you can take the time to, experiment for yourself, plug these numbers in a little bit, and then see where you go from there. But 203 to 293 for a person who's on an 1800 calorie diet, that represents 45 to 65% acceptable macronutrient distribution range. We'll move on to proteins. So we've already written our numbers down. We have our 10 to 35%. So we've already expressed those into decimals, 0.10, 0.35, and using our 1800 calorie value as a base. So what we'll do is, we'll do the first one. We have 1800. We'll times that by 0.10. We get 180. Okay, so we're going to write that here. That's our step one. And then we have 1800. We're going to times that by 0.35. We get 630. All right. Now, with that said, we're going to go ahead and take 180 divided by 4. Because again, for proteins, for each gram of protein you consume, you get 4 kCalories, right? That's how much energy, right, that you get from proteins for each gram you consume. So 180 divided by 4, you end up with 45. And now the second value, we have 630, and we divide that by 4, we get 157.5, which will just have us round up to 158. And you have now figured out how many grams of protein you should consume if you're on an 1800 calorie diet, using an 1800 number as a basis for your total caloric intake. So you should be consuming anywhere between 45 to 158 grams of protein, ideally, right? 45 to 158 is reflective of the 10 to 35%, range that, health organizations have put out there. All right, and last but not least, we're gonna go ahead and go into our fats. So, and you'll notice fats, that's the only macronutrient that has a different kCalorie value for each gram consumed. It goes up to 9. So if you're on a low fat diet, or if you're trying to lose weight by, watching your fat intake specifically of calories, then, fats is definitely one thing you have to be mindful of, because they yield more energy, so to speak. They yield more calories per gram. So 1800, and we're going to times that by 0.20, which again is our macronutrient distribution range, 20 to 35%. So I've already expressed that. We get 360 for this first one. Okay. And then last but not least, 1800, and we're going to times that by 0.35. We get 630. Now, that's our step one. Our step two and last step in this particular action here, in this particular problem, is to take both these values and divide them by 9, which is the amount of kCalories you get per gram. So 360 divided by 9, you're looking at 40. Okay, so that's 40 grams. And then last but not least, 630 divided by 9 is going to give us 70. So with that said, right, 20 or 35% for fats, that is 40 to 70 grams for a person that's on a 1800 calorie diet again. Okay, keep that in mind, right? I wrote this up here because, again, this is just an example. 1800 is what we're using as a baseline. But you know, everyone's goals is different. Everyone's lifestyles are different. Not everybody can eat 2,000 calories. Some people eat more than that. Some people, you know, eat definitely a lot less. Some people don't even eat 3 meals a day. Some people may only eat 2. Maybe they eat big meals, right? And eating big meals means, you know, these values are going to differ because, you know, most things that we consume are by the serving, right? Or they're measured out, I should say, by the serving. So that may be a certain amount of grams, that may be a certain amount of cups, that might be a certain amount of ounces. That part's going to be up to you individually to figure out how much carbs, proteins, and fats are in everything that you consume, how much you're consuming, right? If you're looking at a tablespoon as a serving, but you eat something by the cup, then you'll have to essentially, you know, figure out how to convert your measurements a little bit, right? You have to sort of modify your measurements to where, you know, to get your values, you know, you're eating a cup of something, you'll have to figure out what that cup equals to in tablespoons, you know, something like that, or ounces, right? Ounces will help you out a lot too. But it just depends. When you look on the back of an item and you see the nutrition facts, they'll usually be measured out, you know, by serving size, or maybe they'll be measured out by the package, right? Like say a granola bar is a good example. Normally a granola bar, the entire bar is the serving size. So, you know, if you ate half of a granola bar, that means you're only getting half of the nutrients that's on the back of that. Granola bars are normally measured by the entire package. You have to eat one whole package. Or say, you know, Reese's cups, the big 4-pack, right? Normally those are measured out in 2s. So for every 2 Reese's cups you eat, those are the nutrients that you'll get on the back when you look at the nutrition facts. So this right here, essentially, there's a lot that ties into this, I know, but this is why, you know, looking at serving sizes is very important. You know, what this is here, this is a more sort of simplified way, okay, for you to figure out what it is that you're consuming and, you know, maybe what to stay away from, you know, maybe what you need more of because you might not be getting, you know, a nutrient that you definitely need, that your body requires. Maybe you're not getting a whole lot of it. You know, that's a way for you to figure out like what it is that you have going on. This is really just a more, you know, refined way to figure out what you got going on. Now, most people in the nutrition and fitness realm that are coaches, normally coaches, you know, they're not going to have their clients do their own, you know, values or do their own measurements and do their own math. The coach would, if a coach is good, they'll do that for you. Okay, they're the ones that'll put you on the meal plan based on what your goals are, what it is you're trying to do, and the time frame that you want to do it in. They'll put you on that go. They'll do that for you. They'll do all this math and all of that for you. They'll tell you how much of something to eat. They'll tell you how many times a day maybe that you should try to eat. This right here is just a more simplified way for you to, you know, figure out what it is you got going on, right? Figure out like how far it is along you are and like, you know, what it is that you're trying to do. Something else that you could get if you want is a food scale. Some coaches actually tell their clients to go ahead and get themselves a food scale, right? So, you know, what that does is it helps you measure your food out so that you're only getting the amount that you need. And it, of course, can also tell you whether you are lower than what you should be consuming or if you're about to exceed what you should be consuming. If you're about to consume, you know, an excessive amount for that meal specifically. Because again, you know, all of us, we eat different meals a day, right? We at least, I mean, there's people that maybe eat 1 meal a day. There's people who fast, right? That stuff comes into account, right? If you fast, obviously, you know, your AMDR ranges, they're gonna be a little different, okay? Because if you fast, you're not eating, okay? You're not eating, and your body sort of goes into a state where it's pulling up on, you know, whatever glucose might be left in your body. And when glucose is out, then it's going to turn over to fats, right? As I spoke about in my previous macronutrient videos, it turns over to fat stores and then it converts those to energy, right? It converts your triglyceride fatty acid stores for energy whenever glucose from carbs is not available. So, you know, when you fast, that's different. Maybe you only eat 1 meal a day. I know some people who do just eat 1 meal a day. And of course, this is all different, right? And of course, if you fast or if you only eat 1 meal a day, that means your daily caloric intake is also going to be different. Then I would also need to know what your activity level is like. And maybe, this is helpful for you too. Maybe you want to do it yourself, which is fine. You now have the idea, you know how to do the math, right? Based on what I showed here, you can take these numbers and play around with them for yourself. If you decide to use a full day's calorie, depending on whatever your calorie intake is, then, you can use that and use this legend up here to give you, to get you to the answers that you're looking for. If you do the full day's calories, like I said, that's converting the kCalories over to grams. So this is going to tell you how many grams of each macronutrient you should be consuming ideally based on whatever your baseline number is for caloric intake for the entire day. These are just meals, okay? So when it comes to meals, again, that's going to be up to you to figure out. First thing, step one, okay, and in case you haven't noticed, I've been sort of in a little bit of a recap for a while. Normally I'll do like a recap, where I'll, transition my other side of the board and then just sort of go over what I've done. But I'm kind of doing that already. So this is my little recap here, in these meals. That'll be up to you to figure out how much carbs, proteins, and fats are in everything that you're eating based on the serving size. It just so happens that I was able to give these values to you because these are examples that I learned, when I got my certificate in nutrition and wellness. So with this, you're able to figure out the kCalorie per gram of each macronutrient, and then you can add up all the total kCalories for each. When you get that total, then you take each individual kCalorie for each macronutrient, divide it by that total number, and it'll give you your percentage. It's going to give you your AMDR range. Then you can use this percentage, looking at the legend for the AMDR range, to let you know whether you're within range, or maybe you're less than, or maybe you exceed. Now, if you're less than, like I said, if you're less than for just one meal, that's fine. Like if you look back here, it was the carbs for the slice of bread and the tablespoon of peanut butter. We're a little less than, right? We're 37%. Less than the 45, less than the lower limit. That's fine because that's only one meal. Let's say chances are, a slice of bread and a tablespoon of butter, chances are you're not just consuming that for the entire day, right? Chances are you do have other meals to get to. So having this low of an amount is fine because you can increase this percentage with other meals throughout the day, right? Maybe your other 2 meals, if you eat 3 meals a day, maybe your other 2 meals, you'll be increasing this percentage for sure. Unless, of course, you're not choosing from carbohydrate-rich foods, then you'll stay here. But the ideal goal is to get within that range. All right, same thing with the proteins. All right, 16%, it was 15% for this one. That puts us in range anyway, right? Your 2 meals here, so let's say, we got 16 and 15. That right there is equal to about 31 if I'm not mistaken. So just these 2 meals alone, right, for proteins, right? I'm covering proteins just so that in case you don't get lost. 16 and 15, adding those 2 numbers together, it gives us 31%, right? So with that still puts us within the 31% range. So that's just, I said that just as an example to show you that if you're on the low end of a certain amount, or you're looking at a percentage for AMDR that seems low, as you eat your other meals, it starts to increase. So, but if this is your meal, and let's move over to fats now. Let's say with a slice of bread and a tablespoon of peanut butter, let's say you're getting about 47% of fats, right? AMDR range. Well, since you're only generally supposed to get between 20 to 35, the recommendation is going to be for you to choose from less fattening options as you go on. Because see, that 47%, that sort of, this 28% in this next meal just sort of compounds, right? It sort of compounds with the 47%. So now you're looking at 47%, then you got 28%. It's just going to keep increasing, okay? These are the ranges that should come from your total caloric intake. So if you're eating 3 meals a day, that's something that you do want to be mindful of. Or even if you just eat like 2 meals, or, of course, if you're eating 4, 5, 6, but by that point, if you're eating like 4, 5, 6 meals a day, well, specifically 5 or 6, the only people I've really seen eat 5 to 6 meals a day are those that are like, really into physical activity, really into fitness. Maybe you're a bodybuilder, or maybe you're a power lifter, or you know, you're some sort of maybe Olympic trainer, maybe, you know, maybe you're a CrossFit person, right? Those are the type of people I've really only seen eat 5 to 6 meals a day because, you know, the amount of fitness that they do, right? The amount of physical activity they perform throughout the day requires it, okay? But most of you that are looking at this, you're probably just, you know, more so, I don't want to call you average, but you may be a person who, you know, just maybe you have a 9 to 5 and you maybe have kids, right? Maybe you got a wife or a husband and you don't really have that room to like fit in 5 to 6 meals a day. So chances are, you know, you're not in a position where you're eating 5 to 6 meals a day because your lifestyle simply isn't feasible enough for it. So this will work for you. I mean, this works for, you know, bodybuilders and whatnot too, but they're going to be on a different level simply because of what they do. But for you, you know, as a person out there who just lives a normal everyday life, you know, I should say, you know, you're not most likely not working out twice a day, you know, once in the morning, once in the evening, you know, stuff like that. You probably only maybe, if you can, work out once a day for maybe, you know, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 times a week, you know, something like that. This will work for you, okay? And this is a simplified way, again, for you to figure out how you're doing, okay? What your kCalorie values are, right? And what your AMDR ranges are for each macronutrient, okay? For each carbs, fats, and proteins. That pretty much concludes this video. Feel free, as always, you know, like I say, leave a comment, you know, drop a like, of course. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you know, definitely hit my comment section. I check them out a lot. So, but anyway, you know, I hope you got something valuable out of this. I hope you continue to have a marvelous rest of your day. And I'll see y'all all in the next one. Thank you for tuning in.